Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmos Connection on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And I'm your host, Janet Carolessa, and we're waiting for our co-host, Teresa J. Morris, who will be joining us, I'm sure, any second now. And today we have a very special guest. We have two guests. The first hour is Kim Babcock. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kim. Kim is a psychic and medium who has been doing readings for 5 years. She owns a small metaphysical shop in New Concord, Ohio, called Serenity, where she offers readings, Reiki, and massage. Throughout her life, she says she has experienced things she couldn't explain that others don't seem to notice. She easily recalls foretelling dreams and has developed angelic guidance that also foresees the future. After many years, she realized that God was calling her to help people here in the physical world to receive the closure they need after the death of a loved one. Kim believes that through God, she is able to communicate with spirits that walk in the white light of the Lord. While she is rather new to the Channeling Eric blog and community, her connection to Eric has grown rapidly over the past few months, and we'll explain who Eric is. After reading Dr. Medhuz's first book, My Son and the Afterlife, and the new book, My Life After Death, she has been working closely with Eric and is honored to be a voice for him. And we're going to schedule a time with Elisa Moodhouse, the mother of Eric Moodhouse, or Medhouse. I'm mispronouncing it. Medhouse. I'm sorry, Medhouse.
Medus.
Moodhouse. I'm mispronouncing that all the way. Sorry about that, Elisa. And let's see. Let me briefly, I got to enlarge this a little bit. I can read it. This is about the book, a little bit about that, and we'll go into this with Kim. After the death of her 20-year-old son, Eric, Dr. Medhus began journaling her grief on her blog, Channeling Eric. She knew that only in helping others could she heal herself. Because of her strong science background, she formerly viewed spiritual matters, such as the soul's survival of death, with skepticism. But once Eric began to communicate with family, friends, and blog members, her entire paradigm shifted. After devouring various books in the quantum physics explaining the science behind spirituality, Dr. Medhus is no longer a skeptic. Now she channels Eric through a medium, asking him questions about death, the afterlife, and so much more. And so she has a blog which continues her on this spiritual journey. And she has her two books, My Son in the Afterlife, Conversations from the Other Side. And Eric has authored his own book, My Life After Death, a memoir from heaven. So without further ado, we welcome Kim, you go by Babcock, the psychic and medium who channels Eric. Welcome to our show.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. We're excited to have you. And Ahmad, when TJ chimes in, just let us know. Maybe you can put that in the chat that TJ's here and we can bring her on the show. So, where do we begin? How did you get involved with Eric and Elisa?
Wow. Well, it's quite an interesting story, actually, how I learned about Eric and then got involved with Eric and his mom, Elisa. To make a long story short, I was attending a Reiki class, working on my level 1 and level 2 Reiki certifications. And a gentleman in the class, which I didn't know at the time, but now is a very dear friend of mine, Ethan, shared Eric's book with me. And the way that he presented it sort of scared me, so I never read it. It was My Son and the Afterlife, that book. And so he gave it to
Mm-hmm.
me, encouraged me, take it home and read it. And I had the book for about 3 months, just sitting on my shelf, never did pick it up and read it. And one day when I was home alone, the book literally just fell off the shelf by itself. So,
I hate when they
I
do
just
that.
I just acknowledged his presence and said, "Thank you, Eric. I'll get to you soon." Put the book right back where it was. And then the very next day, the very same thing happened. The book fell off the shelf into the same spot, and I did the same thing. Said, "Thank you, Eric." I still didn't pick it up and read it. Put the book back. And then that night, I saw him very clearly in a dream. He stepped forward and handed me his book. So I thought, okay, so this is 3 days in a row. The very next day, I read the book front to back, could not put it down. And then from there, just, just in my own personal interest, started checking out the blog, was very interested in things that they were talking about. It definitely resonated with me. And, I reached out to his mom, and it was kind of history from there. Shared some readings with her, and now we've been working together as a fantastic team, channeling Eric to answer questions for people and give him guidance on our show every Thursday night, our radio show. And out of this whole relationship, even a tour has been born. So starting in June, we're going to do an 8-city, multi-city tour where we go around the United States and even up to Vancouver to channel Eric, put on these conventions over the weekend where I channel him. We have classes and workshops where we teach people about spirituality, and also where I'll kind of cap the weekend off by trans channeling him. So it's
Wow.
been a fantastic relationship with Eric, and like I said, it's grown rapidly.
Well, I want to back this up and break it down a little bit because this is, it's kind
Sure.
of, I get contacted by the dead all the time. And for me, because I was raised very Christian, kind of got drummed into my head that if you let somebody else talk through you, you're going to get possessed by them. And so I've always had this resistance. But when I met my husband, who's a therapist, he introduced me to a practice which he learned from, I forget who it was. I think it was Roger Wolger or what. No, there's another teacher, one of the teachers he studied with, and I think they're no longer with us. And they taught him how to let people come through you without taking you over. But I still have this judgment of myself when I'm doing it, like, I'm crazy. So how did you get past all these things that our society kind of projects on us and trains us that this stuff is wacky, woo woo, evil, whatever. Tell me how you got past that to allowing that
Yeah.
first expression of Eric, and then also how did you prove it to yourself that this really was Eric and not somebody making up that they're Eric or your own imagination. So go ahead, address
Sure.
that, please.
Sure. Yeah. Throughout this whole process, no matter who I'm connecting with, back in the early stages when all this started happening, um, I guess I never was tempted to think or feel or believe that I was crazy because, thank God, but I always had direct validation in what I was experiencing. The very first time I sort of passed something along was my husband's grandfather came through and he kept handing me this pocket watch. And so I asked my mother-in-law, it's her father, and I said, I keep seeing your dad, and he's showing me a pocket watch. Do you have any idea what this means? And to this day, she still has that pocket watch. So with that very first experience, I was kind of lucky enough to have that immediate validation. So I knew this was coming from somewhere, and there's validation behind it. So I never felt crazy, but I did question why it was happening to me and where it was coming from. And,
Mm-hmm.
through that experience, I've hit my highs and my lows. And, the lowest point was probably realizing the responsibility that you carry with this type of work. And for me, I think if you open yourself up and don't make it a deliberate intention of yours to stay connected to the good, to the positive, to those with God, then you can be in a sketchy place. But for me, I've always, from day one, I've made it my intentions to stay connected to those with God and pass along those messages. So I've never been fearful of being possessed or anything like that. I know it's just not possible for me. But
How do you
also,
know that
um,
that the beings are aligned with that are coming through the entities that they are in alignment with God and the good side of the force or source or however you symbol it? I mean, how do you make that determination?
for me, it's based on the way that they feel when they step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Again, when I hit that lowest point where I sort of freaking out, and I had a premonition. I had a client, we had a reading, and mentioned something about a car accident. A few months later, their loved one was killed in a car accident. And to me, that was just earth shattering, because I thought, man, the responsibility of my words is far beyond what I can comprehend, when I'm doing this. So I sort of broke down and
Right.
asked
Yeah.
God,
Mhm.
literally, if this isn't coming from you, then make it stop. But if it is coming from you, I'll be happy to
Mhm.
be your messenger, so to speak. And it sort of just increased tenfold. So I knew that, I know without a shadow of a doubt that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So,
Mhm.
anytime I open up and connect, I only allow those that are with God to come through. And to me, there's just no other way.
Well, I was reading how Eric, he was 20 years old and he committed suicide by taking a 45 caliber handgun and he shot himself in the head. Um, I was in a household in California, and this young man started coming to me, and then my husband helped me let him come through me. And the next day, I said to the man at the house, it was a couple, and I said, "What happened here?" And he didn't. He said, "Oh, nothing, nothing. There's somebody that's dead that's trying to talk to me," but he didn't say anything. And then it took him like 3 days. He finally confessed. He says, my son killed himself, and this is the 10-year anniversary of his death." And so, it was like, well, thank you. I thought I was going crazy for 2 days. So this is a similar type thing. This
Mhm.
young man committed suicide. The other young man was only like 14, and he committed suicide, shot himself. How
Oh,
do you help
wow.
someone that did that type of thing to themselves integrate that experience?
You know, um, anytime I'm doing a session and bringing through somebody that has passed either from suicide, car accident, heart attack, no matter how they passed, they all go home the same way. To me, that's what I encounter. That's what I experience. And with Eric, he suffered Tourette's syndrome and bipolar and was depressed because nobody sort of gave him a chance. And that's,
Mm.
ultimately one of his many struggles that led to him, taking his own life in the end. But for Eric, the way that I encounter him is now he's a little bit different though when I channel him, because he works as a guide for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I connect to other people, other individuals, I think it's important that one of the biggest things to convey that they all say, no matter how they died, they go home the same way. And I think that's kind of a notion that they're trying to break, because for us here, some of us still think and believe that if you commit suicide, that you don't get to go back and be with God, based on some people's religious
Mm-hmm.
beliefs. But that's where Eric comes in. He sort of demystifies all of those. All of those theories and beliefs, and sort of brings forward truth and his experience through it. And that's what's been pretty incredible for so many people that have visited his blog, and also, anybody else that comes through that's not related to channeling Eric. Um, I think for us as humans, our beliefs are so limiting, and that's what Spirit's trying to tell us, that, open your mind up. It doesn't matter how somebody passes. We all kind of go home the same way. Our experience, what we experience during our transition, is going to be different, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, there's this place we call home, and that's where we all go back to. So
Well,
it
can
can
you
be, it can
elaborate
be.
more on what you mean by we all go home the same way? I read the Dr. Michael Newton Institute's book, and they have 40,000 cases they've documented now about where we go when we die. But I'm just curious what you mean by how we all go home the same way. Is there a structure that we encounter once we've crossed over, we passed?
Just from my experience and what Spirit has communicated to me, and what they've shown me is, when I say we all go home the same way, it's our transition and what we experience could be different. So what I think, based on what I have experienced, is that what you experience when you transition is very closely related to what you believe you'll experience. But then there's
Mm-hmm.
a whole, um, it's kind of like initially, right after your passing, at the very beginning of your transition, you'll experience what you think. That way, it's not a jarring transition, so to speak. Now, it doesn't mean it's not shocking or
Right.
unexpected, but still, I think you experience what you expect to experience, and then curiosity starts looming about. And that's when guides come in, angels come in, and sort of kind of show you the ropes and show you around. And, when I say we all go home the same way, this is just my own personal belief and take on it based on what
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced. And what I mean by that is no matter what life you lived here, no matter how you died here, to me, what I experienced is that God says, come back to me. Let me teach you. So many people think that, oh, you're going to burn in hell. You're such a sinful person and you got to do all this work before you can be with God. But that's not the God that I experience. The God that I experience when I do this is far more forgiving and loving than we can even conceive of. And that's why I say we all go home the same way. It doesn't matter what kind of life you lived here.
Very
Or
interesting.
yeah, and
Well,
to me,
I just
it's
want to
God says,
interject here
yeah,
what Michael Newton said that, yeah, same thing. You encounter what you believe, a variation of what you believed. In fact, there's one case where a man was a like a some kind of evangelist type leader, religious leader, and he died. And when he crossed over, he was met by this satanic figure, and then he freaked out. And then soon the guy took his mask off. It was a friend of his, and he said, "Oh, I just wanted to scare you." So apparently they have a sense of humor. And then, of course, the
mm,
guides came in, and the council of elders and all these people came in, and they were all kind of laughing and sharing the joke with him. So I found that to be quite amusing. So, but that seems to
yeah.
be it. Although, what do they do? And you may not have encountered this in your work, but what do they do with somebody that's like a Hitler type personality? Do you have any ideas what happens to those types of people?
For them, I think it's for anybody, I think it's the process is the same as far as structure. I think that when we transition, um, I think initially we go through we go through a life review phase where you learn deeply about who you are. And I think for Hitler it was no different. I think the treatment, judgment, whatever you want to call it, is no different. I think the worst judgment we're ever going to face is our own personal criticism. And
Mm-hmm.
um, what I always think to myself is that just the God that I know says, there's no failure, there's no wrong. But yet, when you pass over, I think that he says, come back to me and let me teach you about you. Let me teach you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you did wrong, you're going to burn in hell. I don't forgive you because I don't, I think that limits God. That thought process is limiting to God and his ability to love us, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a
Right.
bigger concept sometimes than what society portrays. Society can be very close-minded, I guess, in that.
Mm-hmm. So, how many people have you worked with that are coming from that other realm besides Eric?
Um, Eric has been, I guess, the first relationship that I've made other than my own personal guides.
Mm-hmm.
Working with somebody on the other side, every day I encounter um, tons of spirits that come through and communicate messages to their loved ones. But as far as maintaining a relationship and continuing work with somebody, Eric, and then my own personal spirit team, and that's about it. So, of course,
Okay.
always God is a part of that process. If it wasn't for God, none of this could happen. Um, and
None of
being
this could
connected to
happen.
God's source. So, right.
So, what are some of the things that Eric wants us to know from the other side?
Um, Eric is all about pushing the truth. He just wants to tell the truth. He wants people to know the truth so that they can sort of relieve the fear of dying. So many people are actually crippled by the fear of death and the dying process, and he wants to demystify, what happens and help you kind of get rid of that fear. But he enlightens people on the spiritual purpose of things, the spiritual meaning of, why you're going through this or why you're experiencing that. He's a no BS kind of guy. He's very blunt, very forward, and extremely candid. And so sometimes that can be interesting. It can also be very embarrassing. But either way,
Well, he was
I never
young.
filter. He was,
Yeah, he
yeah.
was just he was a
But
20-year-old, so he still has maintained that personality as a 20-year-old, or does he
you
incorporate
know,
his personality with the other aspects of himself as an eternal soul? How does that work?
the latter of the two. I experience Eric in many ways. Most of the time, initially when I started working with him, he was very candid, very much a jokester. But it's like the more I get to know him and work with him, I see these dynamics of him where he wants to be taken seriously because he's very compassionate and very passionate about what he's doing. So I see sort of all sides of him, um, all sides, and literally and figuratively. So,
Wow.
yeah, he's definitely, and too, you had asked earlier, how did you know that this was him and nobody else coming through? He would give me very specific things to talk to his mom about, and to just let them know, his family, that he's there and he sees what's going on. So I knew it was him. And I'd get a hold of his mom and say, "How do you connect to this message? Da, da, da. What does this mean to you?" And she would say, "Oh, this is exactly what that is." And one time it was 312. He kept saying 312. And I said, "I don't, okay." So I got a hold of his mom. There was a message behind it too, but I said, "Well, how do you connect to 312?" And she said, "Well, that's my wedding anniversary on March 12th." So
Oh my goodness.
he was yeah, so he was just using that little bit of information to validate his message to his sister. And so stuff like that comes through that really, I sort of set those rules to spirit though. Like if you're going to communicate through me, I need you to give me factual information. I need
Mm-hmm.
validation for myself, for my clients, and because this kind of work is sometimes you're not taken seriously in this industry. So
Right.
those facts would really help that in both respects.
Yeah, I remember like Houdini had a secret message, and or this is a story. I'm not sure 100% of all the facts, but I think he put it in a sealed envelope in a vault and that type of thing. You can, if you're going to die, you can prepare something for your loved ones that you can get proof from a third party. I just wanted to check with Ahmad. Is TJ with us yet, or do you have some comments or something you want to say, Ahmad? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can't hear you hard at all. Have you found TJ yet?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I just thought I heard you trying to come in here, but we'll keep going. Okay, so let me go back to this information. This is fascinating, by the way, and I just love it. So,
Yeah.
has there been any other type of quote unquote proof? And I'm interested, you said that Eric wants to convey the truth. So, that's what I wanted to know a little bit more about. What is the truth that he wants us to know about?
Well, Eric sort of helps people deal with life. He helps people deal with and understand what they're going through. So he'll help them seek the truth in that. So, for example, if somebody just can't seem to pull out of financial hardship, for example, Eric will bring the truth to them as far as why they're experiencing that, and also anytime there's repeated cycles like that, and the truth about the realities that you create for yourself and what that means and sort of how to change that. He helps to bring basically the spiritual meaning behind what you're experiencing in life. And if you can understand that, you can live the best life possible for yourself. Eric was
So you
somebody
could
who wanted
take
to help people.
somebody. So you can take somebody to him, like somebody comes to you and says, "I want to talk to Eric," and they can go to
Hmm.
Eric with what's going on, and Eric will. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that aspect of it. Fascinating. Maybe he'll talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, that's just a separate service that I offer is just channeling Eric sessions because, like I
Uh
said,
huh.
he works like a guide with me. So we're kind of working like a team. And if a client books a channeling Eric session, you know, people will, he has a huge following. It's worldwide, literally
Mhm.
worldwide. And people will book these sessions to say, Eric, I'm going through this. What does this mean? I'm going through that. How can you help? And he has a way of honing in on the client's energy and being very specific about what they're experiencing in life and what it means to them. So because, the whole purpose behind this, is, in his physical life, Eric was unable to help people the way he wanted to. He just wanted, people to listen, but they didn't give him that chance. And so now in his second book, My Life After Death, he explains basically his transition, but also talking to God about being a guide and being more connected to the earth realm, so that he can be a guide for people. So it's yeah, that book is an absolute page turner. It's very gripping and very
That's
fascinating,
very
and it
interesting.
helps. Yeah,
Well,
and
I
it
wanted to
helps
ask you about
sort
that.
of.
How does a human 20-year-old once dead learn how to be that evolved on that level? Is there like a school he goes through, or is that who he is as a soul, or some combination of those things? How does someone learn how to be that kind of guide for human beings that are here in the physical realm doing, human lives? Do you have any
That's a
ideas?
that's a great question. Yeah, he actually explains that in his second book. And he explains how he met with different councils, different groups of archangels and spirit guide councils, and also with God, what meeting God was like for him, and you know, him asking to be a guide, and then help kind of coming to him and guiding him. These are the ropes. This is how you communicate, this is how you stay interacting with the spiritual or with the earth realm. So and he talks about that in both books, learning how to move and manipulate things when you don't have hands, physical hands, and
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to get somebody's attention. So it's extremely fascinating, and like I said, these books absolutely changed my life and changed my perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely
Wow.
broadened my thought process.
So what does God look like? Is God formless? Does he appear in an image that makes you comfortable? I mean, how does he explain how do you get to talk to God? Do you have to set up an appointment? Does it just happen because you wish it? Maybe you could explain some of that to us.
Yeah, Eric explains that in his book, and I've also had my own um, encounters, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
where just it's just different for me growing up and being raised Catholic, and then being a medium and making my own personal connection to God is just so different. And to me, I think part of it, I think, is you will experience what's comfortable to you. But the way that I see God is pure white light, pure energy source, the source of all life force. So to me, it's pure white light. It's a vibration that's almost it's so high that it's like a solid, but it's sort of hard to
Mm-hmm.
explain. But Eric also sort of explains the same thing in one of his books, that it was a light source. And for him, he also talks about, it's a pretty neat thing. You said, do you need an appointment? And it's God's ability is infinite to be able to reach you and connect with you, because we are actually all just dynamics, different aspects of God. So we are a part of him. We are, him in essence. So Eric talks about how that, is just infinite. Even Eric being a guide, he's able to divide his energy infinitely to be able to help people, and it doesn't like deplete him. So it's all energy talk and vibration that he kind of mentions in his books, but it's the same concept that I experience with God.
That correlates a lot with the Dr. Michael Newton Institute information that they're gathering, so I find that very fascinating. I had an experience one time where I was sleeping and I was going through like this maze in my mind, like a bunch of hedges, and I was trying to get through this labyrinth. That's the word I'm looking for, labyrinth. And finally, I broke out of the labyrinth and I went straight out my crown chakra, and I traveled across the universe, and I went to Source. I was heading down to Source, and God, just for my convenience, just manifested a big hand and a big smile and happy eyes and a little happy face and big hands. And I went up and I raised my hand, which I manifested, and we high-fived, and I said, I made it and I'm going back. He says, I know, to show the others the way. So it was just the most phenomenal experience.
Wow.
And when I woke up, my husband was still in, he gets up early sometimes, but he was still in bed beside me. And I just crawled over into his arms and I sobbed and I sobbed. And it was the sobs of joy. And I said, I went home and touched the hand of God and I'm not dead. I'm still here with you. And I'm so happy. Because, I've had 8 near-death experiences, and they had been at the hands of things that were pretty hideous. But to have one conscious like that, it was like a beautiful gift. So how did you have your appointment with God? And how did you end up staying here instead of, it's so joyous. It's hard not to just stay there. But I chose to come back because I know I have work.
Yeah, there's been a few different experiences, but probably the one that that stands out the most is when, all of this was happening so fast, people wanting readings and this information just, flooding through me. And although, it was fantastic and the clients were able to validate everything, to me, that's great to be able to get that validation, but I still was like, where is this coming from? Why is this happening all of a sudden? It was just like someone turned on a light switch and then all of this started happening. But that's kind of when I broke down and was like, you know what? Because, still the strong Catholic in me at that time was sort of like, I don't know if this is good by God or not. I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing this or not. I was still living in fear. And that's sort of when I just quit everything briefly. I even told my parents I'm not doing this anymore, and they were like devastated. But I said, in me it was just I had to stop everything and make my connection with God and know that what I was doing was okay. So I did. Like I said, I actually got the Bible out, and that's where I had found comfort. And there were many verses that I was just led to randomly that talked about being able to communicate with spirit and spiritual gifts. And so then I started to find peace in that. But I just had a direct one-on-one conversation and told God that I need to know if this is coming from you. If it is, it'll keep happening. I promise that I'll be the messenger for you, whatever. But if it wasn't coming from you to make it stop. And at that time, then it just increased like crazy. So I knew it was God wanting me to do this. I've been working in healthcare for so long, and this was just a complete shift. Nothing I ever really set out to do or even knew anything about growing up. But it sort of called me to it. So that's just one of many experiences that I've had with God.
Now, I'm not sure, did you want to bring Eric through and have us talk to him in this show?
We do. Sometimes we do that. We have, callers will call in and ask Eric questions, regarding the afterlife or the purpose of something. So we can talk to Eric and have him shed some light on some things. But we generally discuss the afterlife, what it's like, or the purpose
Okay.
behind this or that. So yeah, it can be interesting.
Okay. So what do you do to prepare to have Eric come through? Do you have to do anything, or does your
Nope,
voice change?
no, not at all. I just shift the way that I listen. If I'm gonna tune in and listen to spirit, I just kind of shift my energy a little bit. If it's Eric versus other people, I shift and focus on connecting with him. And he's sort of always here because, like I said, he's a guide. He's one of my guides, so he's always around, and it's just whether or not I'm
Mm-hmm.
consciously listening. So sometimes
Okay.
I purposely tune him out. So
Not
um,
now, Eric. Well,
exactly.
that's
But
truth.
he's
You have all
here.
these people around you. Do you ever have your own life? Eric, now's not the
Yeah,
time. Well,
exactly.
okay,
There's
I'd love
times we're
to
all here
meet
his
Eric if
clients.
you really.
Go ahead.
So, oh
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
I'd love to meet you, Eric, if you want to come through. And I know somebody sent me some questions that would be okay for us to ask. So, and I'm out if people want to ask questions from the chat or something. If you want to, instead of having a call, just maybe have them put their questions in the chat, and I can also read them if that will work. We have about no, we have about 20 minutes, I guess, and then we're going to be done. Say that again.
Yeah, that'll.
They put them in caps, I'll see them.
Okay, okay. If they put them in caps, we'll see your questions out there in the chat. And in the meanwhile, I'll just start with asking some questions. And whenever you're ready, Kim, with Eric, just say, I'm ready.
Sure, go for it. He's here and he's
Oh.
sassy. So there's your fair warning.
Oh, well, Eric, I love sassy. I'm a sassy lass myself. I'm curious. One of the questions you have here are what jobs are in the afterlife, and why do we have them? You mean we can't escape jobs? Come on, tell us about that.
Okay. He says, well, the jobs here essentially, he says it's much different than what you experience on the earth realm, because a lot of times on the earth plane you check in and you check out, but the whole time you're checked in, like after you've punched your time card, you're still not there. But
Mm-hmm.
here you're actually connected to your purpose, your job, and he's like doing air quotes with his fingers. He says here, if you have a job, you're actually connected to that purpose. You want to be there, and the jobs that are here are all related to developing your soul growth, your soul development. So he says, you name it, they have it. But the reason why you would seek out a certain job is for the experience that you would gain that helps your soul develop and grow. Because he says, because ultimately that growth is what you want to achieve to raise your vibration, to heighten yourself. So he says you can manifest any experience you want here, but and he's kind of he's kind of laughing, and he says, but working here is not like working there. He's like, working there, sometimes depending on what you do, it can suck. He says, but working here, it's you have it's he's actually referring to, I'm sure some of you know this term, biofeedback. He says you get to
Mm-hmm.
see like direct results of the work you're putting into yourself. It's constant, like you're 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 more consciously aware of the way you're helping yourself. So that in itself is propelling, he says, to make you sort of motivating, to
Mm-hmm.
make you want to keep working, where there on earth he's like, it's much different.
Right,
So
right. Well, I recalled through hypnosis that one of my jobs in the other realm, the afterlife, let's call it, was a planet developer. And I thought I was crazy. And then years later, I read the Dr. Michael Newton book. But are there people that actually are beings or whatever we're called souls that work on terraforming planets?
he says, he's so funny because when he answers questions, sometimes he's so matter of fact. And I'm like, I have to remind him, like, we're not matter of fact. Like, this is a bigger deal to us than it is to you.
Mm-hmm.
And he answers your question like this. He's like, uh-huh, yeah. He says,
Okay.
he's like, there are all different, there's all sorts of groups and categories of people, of souls, and their purpose. He says there's categories inside of categories as far as purpose and what you're doing. Um, so he says there are many like you that have experienced that with you, but he's just starting to ramble. He says the whole
Mm,
purpose why, kind of re-experiencing that through hypnosis or something is sort of just to stay connected to that and how that experience can help you here, how it can help you now.
mhm. So, Eric, so you mentioned there are different kinds of jobs, and your job is a guide. Can you tell us what a guide is? What are the roles and responsibilities of a guide, and how does one learn to be a guide and become a guide?
Yeah, that's a good question. He's like tapping his index finger on his lips, and he says not many people ask me that about what the rules are for me, but he says okay, in becoming a guide, it's like basically drawing up a contract. You make agreement with God, you draw up a contract because being an aspect of God, but a more interactive aspect, I guess. He says the rules, it comes with a sense of knowing. He says here we are creatures of all knowing. We're knowledgeable creatures. So it's the rules are not, it's not like you have to go over them, rehearse them. It's just a sense of knowing. And he says the biggest thing for him as far as his rules is knowing when somebody is supposed to find something out from me, can receive information from me, or if they need to experience it organically without that foresight. And he wants me to share this example real quick. So, sort of an
Okay.
example is that of that is I had a couple. They've been clients of mine for a while now, and they have channeling Eric sessions. And one time they were on the phone and wanted to know if they were pregnant. They had been trying to conceive and wanted to know. And Eric was looking at me, and he was saying, yes, they're pregnant, but they're not allowed to find out like this. So you can't tell them.
Mm.
So um, I basically told them, like, Eric is telling you this is not the way you're supposed to find out. So, however they were supposed to find out, there was purpose and value in that experience that Eric knew that he couldn't interfere with. So he shared with me that they were pregnant and expecting a girl. And a week later, I got that email saying they found out they were pregnant, and so it was pretty cool. But he knows, those barriers, and he won't cross them. People will say stuff like they'll ask questions about money, and he won't go there. They'll ask questions about death timing, like when am I going to die? When's my mom going to die? And he's like, nope, that's not for me. That's God's work, not mine. So he knows. I mean, he's very forward about it, very blunt. He'll say, I'm not going to answer that. That's not my work. So
Interesting.
it can be.
Eric, Eric, are you going to come back into the Earth realm at some point in time? And if so, do you know when that might be and in what form and where?
He says, this is how he answers that. He says, I will, but not anytime soon. He says,
Okay.
he likes his purpose. He says he feels more effective, much more effective from where he is. He says, I can do so much more, reach so many more, and help so many more from here than I ever could there. He says, I will. I'll come back, but it's going to be a long time.
Mm-hmm. Do souls sometimes come to go to other planets, and are they limited to one lifetime at a time, or how does that work? Do they have to go into one body at a time, and are they limited to the Earth plane? Can they go other places?
Ooh, that's a neat question. He's explaining the his whole perspective on different incarnations. You know, when people say my past life, he says, well, Eric's whole explanation is it's not in the past in linear time. It is in existence. It's just a matter of where your consciousness is, your awareness. So when we look at other lives, Eric says they're all happening simultaneously. Everything just is all at once. There's no linear form of time. Although we
Mm-hmm.
perceive it that way, it's just basically, he says, our inability as humans to be able to fully perceive, I guess, the absence of time, like that everything just all is at once. So that goes with multiple incarnations are happening at once for anybody at any given time. He does like air quotes with his fingers. But he says,
And that's exactly what I've been getting. So I'm so glad to hear that, Eric, because I've been saying that for a while. And it's really hard for people to understand. And even when we're trying to
yeah,
explain it, we can't help but use the word time. You know.
Hello.
Hi. Hold one moment, please, while we bring in Teresa J. Morris. Hi, TJ. We've been talking to Kim Babcock, and she now is channeling Eric. So if you want to listen for a few minutes while we answer some questions, then maybe you have a question. We only have her here for like another 10 minutes. But thanks for
Sure.
coming on board.
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay, so we
so
were talking to Eric about the concept of time. Do you want to kind of explain a little bit to Teresa what the answer was about time and simultaneous incarnations, etc.?
yeah, he was answering your question and talking about you can have, you know, multiple incarnations all at the same time, but it's a matter of where your consciousness is, where the highest concentration of your awareness is at any time as far as what you're perceiving. So I guess the way that Eric explains it, he says sometimes when those consciousness, you know, when one consciousness collides with another, is when you experience deja vu. It's like when two forms of yourself come together is when you experience deja vu. Because really, he says that your lives are all happening on top of each other at the same time. It's not linear and it's not stacked in any way. It's not like this one has to end before the next one can begin. But also with your question, can people go to other planets? He says, as far as humans go, he says their consciousness can shift. Their awareness can shift to other planets. So that doesn't really explain much. He goes, so you have that. He says, so you have that. And then he's like showing me astral travel.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of a strange explanation, but as far as humans are concentrated on Earth and their consciousness can focus elsewhere, can travel. So energetically traveling, I guess. Um, but yeah, he's explained that concept of time many times, and it's still taking, you know, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that the
Mm-hmm.
1800s is happening right now, and you know, it's a timestamp. It's once it's, you know, it's occurred, it's created, it's immortal. He says, you know, anything in time is kind of engraved in that moment, so it's immortal.
Mm-hmm.
So
I wanted to ask one more question, and then I'll shift it to TJ, and maybe Ahmad has a question before the show's over. But Eric, where are you? Where is the dead zone? Are you in the same space as we are? Can those who are dead see us all the time? Do they have to travel to see us? Is it a different vibratory frequency? Is it where are you basically?
he's such a jokester. He's like, I'm right here. But
Mm-hmm.
he says, um, in order for Kim to pick up on and perceive me, I have to be in her biofield. I have to be basically like our vibrations have to intertwine. It is a vibratory level. He says, like when you share a vibration with someone, that's when you can communicate like this. He says, so as far as travel, I don't have to go anywhere. It's just a matter of thinking about it and then being in that experience. There's no travel from point A to point B. It's just you think about it and then you're there. So he says, um, for anybody to communicate with you guys, they have to be able to shift their vibratory level um, to a frequency in which you'll be able to pick up on. And also that takes work on your part too, your part being any human, being able to connect with spirit, for us to shift our vibration level as well to pick up on and perceive them. So it's all about shifting that frequency, he says, that vibration.
Mm-hmm. So can he walk through us, and can we walk through him?
He says, sort of. He says you do. You share space with more realms than you ever can realize. But as far as actually feeling somebody or something pass through you, that's a whole different thing. He says it's kind of hard to explain. He says you can bump elbows with spirit, but as far as you picking up on and perceiving somebody passing through you, it's kind of like there has to be permission for that. Like people can't just go in and out of you. That's kind of against the rules, he says.
Great.
So yeah, strange but fascinating nonetheless.
I know we're running out of time, and TJ, why don't you take it away for the end of the show? I've been asking all the questions.
Well, hello, everybody. Sorry I was late, but I guess I wasn't in tune. I thought I was in tune, but I missed it by an hour. And that's one thing I've noticed, death and dying in my own body, and then sharing with other people. But thank you, Janet, for being here and inviting this lovely guest. And are they going to stay for the next hour so we can get to know more about
Kim has to leave. And we're going to have what's his name? Barry.
Or someone else. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I forget. No, right this second. I got to pull up the thing. Do you have any questions for Kim before she leaves us? Because we only have a few more minutes.
Yeah, we've got other shows, Kim. I'd like to have you back since I didn't really get to know you for whatever reason. I really don't know why the universe puts me in places and spaces and why we're on top of each other, but apparently not all of us can resonate. I guess I'd just like to know, last night I heard my husband, and then again today, and I'm like, okay, is he out there? Because he just passed December 2nd. But, it's sort of like that Houdini syndrome. When we lose someone we really love, we really would like to know where they are. And, of course, I've lost my brother and mother and sister and all of them. I'm 64. But this one, I'm still attached to the emotions very strongly. And I was wondering, is there a way you can, I guess, channel or explain through, I guess it's your son that passed? Is that what you're saying?
It's the other woman's son. But yes, Eric, would you please see if you can, give a message to TJ from Tom, who just passed December 4th.
Well, anytime somebody loses a loved one like that, what Eric is saying is, first of all, be compassionate with yourself in the healing process. And, your mind can take you crazy places in trying to explore where they are and what they're experiencing. And he says your ability to recognize the attachment in that is key, because when you can recognize the attachment there, that's when healing is going to be able to occur. So Eric is actually encouraging you to recognize the attachment so that healing can begin to occur, and then sort of move from there as far as the questions that you might have.
Okay, well.
And we're out of time. We're out of time.
Yeah. We'll have to have her back, folks. We will. Fun.
Well, thank you, Kim, for joining us. And we have Barry Strohm at the after the top of the hour. Thank you, Kim. Much love and blessings.
Yes, thank you so much.
Eric.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
You've been listening to Revolution Radio.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
Host with exceptional guests. I'm Patricia Aiken. Every week at Sacred Cow Barbecue, my guests and I kill at least one sacred cow. We're definitely thinning the herd. We say to hell with politically correct and examine the real facts. Interrupt your regularly scheduled programming as we free our minds. Diversity, white genocide, the con and the Constitution, vaccine damage, fake money, criminally insane government. Whew, there's a big herd to slaughter. Grab a plate and come hungry. Sacred Cow Barbecue, Thursdays 10 p.m. Eastern, Studio A.
Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat masses, eating and drink themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and then bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Not me. Get it done.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com.
Hey everyone, it's Barbara Jean Lindsay, the Cosmic Oracle. If you have questions about your past lives or future plans, need answers from the cosmos about your love life or career, or just want to keep your finger on the pulse of the planet, check out my show, The Cosmic Oracle, here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
The Secret Society Revealed. With your host, Joseph Atwell, author of Caesar's Messiah, The Roman Conspiracy to Invent Jesus, and Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, the groundbreaking discoveries that gives us a new understanding of how governments and elites use mind control to manipulate their subjects. Join Mr. Atwell as he lifts the veils of deceptions of our modern world. Mondays, 12 noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time on Revolution Radio.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
I'll be your host for the second hour anyway. I'm wonderfully excited about having a mad painter, also Thomas Becker. He's very well known for his artiste work in the world, but he's also our producer. He's been with Mike Ringley and Revolution Radio almost since the inception. And Janet Carol Lesson is here from Hawaii with her group and our groups, and we share a lot of radio shows. But first, let me introduce Ahmad before we bring on our second guest for the show. Ahmad Painter, would you share everything that we normally share? Tell people how to find us out there in cyberspace land.
I'm not sure they can hear me with this microphone messing up.
Oh, that's right. Okay, folks, I'll tell you. You can go to, bless his heart, Matt's pinched his wire. So, for whatever reason, Matt, I can see his picture, but you can go to freedomslips.com if you can hear me on the computer. Our Freedom's Lips. I prefer Freedom's Lips, Reedomslips, Freedom Lips, ourfreedomslips.com. You'll find us there. And with me is Janet Carroll Lesson, my friend of many, many years in the paranormal spiritual UFO world.
TJ, you got to do the commercial about donation. Don't forget that.
Oh, that's right, folks. You know what? A Mad Painter's been doing it for me so long. You guys, we are working together as a group here at Cosmos Radio, but we're also working with Mike Ringley because he allows us this wonderful platform with all the people that he has built up for years that follow this Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. And from what I understand from Ahmad, we are the #1 listening supporter radio show in the cosmos. So please, if you can, throw a little donation our way. There's a PayPal account. That's what I use, PayPal. And you can go to freedomslips.com and put a $5 or $10, or if you got more, we'd appreciate $20. I just committed to what they call a pledge today, $20 for a certain group that called me on the phone, and then they send it to you in the mail. But this way, you can just add it on PayPal. Anything you want to add to that, Janet, about the seeds? Or
that was great. Yeah, I don't know all the specifics of what the current deals are, but go to freedomslips.com, and I'm sure it's all there. And but thank you very much for your donations, and we appreciate your donations, which allow our shows. I have another show on Sunday called The Sacred Matrix, and I work with TJ Morris on Cosmos. What is this one called? Cosmos Connection. I'm going to the what is it? Alien Cosmic Expo. There's all this cosmics and cosmos stuff.
Oh, we love the cosmos. She's going to the
we are the cosmos.
Cosmic Expo, folks. Let me explain.
In June.
It's cosmic for them. It's cosmos for us. We differentiated between Canada and the USA. So Canada uses cosmic. We use cosmos. So Alien Cosmic Expo, please look it up, aliencosmicexpo.com. And Janet will be going in June with her wonderful husband, Dr. Alexander Sasha Lesson, PhD in anthropology, master's in psychology, wonderful couple. They've been such good friends to me for years. Academically, we're peers. We have many websites, including Alien Contact Organization, Ascension Center, and I've got church.org for all you metaphysicians out there. Janet has Ascension Center Network for all of you guys that want to network with us about raising consciousness. Now, we're going to get on to the rest of the show, folks. We've got Barry Strohm here. He's from Pennsylvania, where Janet was born and lived and went to the university there and learned computers. And Janet is going to share, because she found him connected to the Alien Cosmic Expo.com up in Canada. I guess they're going to speak, and I don't know why I got left out, probably because I didn't know about it. But Janet, the ladies did call me about the name, and the two ladies are the ones I was talking to, and they came on one of my radio shows on Blog Talk, told me what they were doing years ago. So they've been doing it 2 or 3 years. I know Stanton T. Friedman came on our show as well. Stanton has been in the UFO world for like ever. He's our godfather in the alien ET UFO community, but he was there at one of them. So, Janet, you want to tell us about that, if you've got the date?
I'll tell you about Barry Strohm, who's going to be at the Alien Contact Expo, and you're springing the date on me. Let me get that real quick, which is June. It's June 24th, 25th, and 26th. It's in Toronto, Ontario, and Barry's one of the presenters. And so, and next year you'll be there, TJ. Just contact everybody and get on the bus, get on the plane.
Oh, you Barry a lot.
Yes. Let me tell our listeners about Barry R. Strohm. He's an author and lecturer, and he uses the gift of spirit communication communication through the use of a channeling board to bring information concerning life after death, reincarnation, alien presence on Earth, and many other related subjects. And his sessions have included spirits such as President John F. Kennedy, President Ulysses S. Grant, General George Custer, King Richard III, Buddy Holly, St. Timothy, St. Augustine, St. Martin of Tours, and many others. All channeling sessions are recorded in video and audio as proof of the receipt of the information and contact with spirits on the other side of the veil of life. And Barry was born near Hershey, Pennsylvania. He currently resides in Park City, Utah. He has a wife named Connie. They've been together 50 years. That's a major accomplishment. Congratulations, Barry. And he's the author. He graduated from Lehigh University with a business management degree. He attained a civil engineering license, and he is the current owner of Golden Lane Antique Gallery in New Oxford, Pennsylvania, one of the most haunted structures in the country. I bet that's very interesting. And what started as a casual interest in paranormal photography became an obsession as the author was led along the path of learning about the afterlife and the presence of aliens among us. That's one of my favorite topics. The gift of spirit communication allows the author to contact the spirit of deceased aliens and obtain actual information that has never before appeared in print. His site is spiritspredict.com. And welcome to our show, Barry. Thanks for joining us.
I am delighted to be here.
Well,
We
Barry,
are so happy to have you here.
Yeah, tell us how this works, Barry. Enlighten us. We have various levels of psychic abilities. I think everybody has them. Not everyone uses them. But can you share with us how you do all of this? And then you can talk about your spooky place you got going on, too.
Well, until I was 60 years old, I never even believed in ghosts. And, yeah, I really didn't understand what was on the other side. Had to come back to my store and spend some time here, and the ghosts started introducing themselves to me, and we became more and more involved with it. We started out, like most people do, talking to them on a ghost box or taking their pictures with infrared cameras. We watch them every night now when we shut down on the security cameras here at the store.
Wow.
We have literally hundreds of them here. It's an antique gallery. It's about 30,000 square feet. We have spirit attachments. We have longtime residents. The building used to be a shoe factory, and we've actually communicated with 8 people that worked here when it was a shoe factory.
Cool.
Yeah, they're very friendly here. They're old friends. We have a couple of them standing here listening to the show tonight.
Awesome. Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
On the other side or wherever you are. So, yeah, we want to know about all these people. This is cool because we're starting to accept that there's more to life than we see because we all love somebody that goes somewhere. If we don't already, they will be soon. So, are you a medium, Barry, or why do they come to you?
I do have some psychic abilities. I do not consider myself a medium because I don't. Sometimes I can see them. I can receive mental messages, but I can't do it on a consistent basis.
Well, you're a mediator, but you use your equipment to see them scientifically. I guess your ghost box and all of that. Huh?
Well, we were introduced to the concept of using a spirit board. We had some friends out in Salt Lake City that had been doing it for 40 years, and the guides led us to these people, which is another whole story how all this takes place. But they invite me to attend one of their board sessions. The guides come right in and start off with messages for me. Tell me what is going on back in Pennsylvania. These people had no clue what it was, and I was blown away with the concept. We started practicing, got a board of our own. I worked with some different mediums here that had some more energy than I did at the time. And we started doing our own communication. And over the past 6-7 years, we've probably channeled on the channeling board over 400 hours. I've written 3 books based on information that we've gained on the board. it's the channeling board is an absolutely amazing tool.
Okay.
Most of the paranormal investigators are afraid of it. We have no fear. We have actually let the spirit guides design our own board. We use a circular board that's very different from a Ouija. We use a prayer protection that the guides have actually given to us. We always start every session with a prayer protection. We thank our guides. I generally start a couple days before a session by praying for a presence that I want. I'll write out the questions before the sessions, and they generally know the questions ahead of time and give me the proper guides to answer the questions that I'm coming to them with. I do a newsletter where we put out future predictions. I posted 9 months before it happened that the last pope was going to retire. So,
whoa.
Yeah, they predicted earthquakes, natural disasters, all kinds of stuff for us. And I put those out in a free newsletter. I've just become more and more involved with the process. And the more involved I become, the more I've worked on my personal energy. And we've reached a point now that my wife, Connie, and I can basically sit and do the board. We've done several live radio shows where we've let people call in the questions. So it's an incredible tool, and the information that we've gained on it is just beyond any normal belief.
All right. Janet, questions?
Yeah, well, you said that you have predictions. What's coming in down the line for 2016 that you can tell us about?
A lot of natural disasters, a lot of flooding in the southern United States, earthquake activity within the next 2 years in California, major earthquake activity. About 6 months ago, we got a prediction that Hawaii was going to gain a lot of real estate through volcanic activity.
Get some of that, Janet. Get some of that volcanic activity going.
Yeah, really.
Well, we've been getting a lot of earthquakes lately, and we've been getting. Well, my roommate, property mate, she doesn't live in my house, but she said that the bed the other day felt like somebody was punching the bed from underneath the ground there. So we're starting to get some action going here. But that stuff happens all the time. But go ahead.
They're telling us that there'll be another terrorist attack within 8 months in the United States, and they're predicting it'll take place in Chicago.
Oh, no. That's where I want to go in May.
You'll have time. Just watch over your shoulder. But they're very good about it. They called they predicted the Boston bombing. They told us about that, but they don't give us really great details or exact timing. It's history. It has to play out. We're not allowed to do anything to interfere with it. But the guides have been very good about giving us future information.
That's nice. At least you know about it. I guess if you can't interfere with it, those are the kind of questions a lot of people don't understand in 3D about how and why we're here on this learning planet. You got any deep, in-depth philosophy as to how this works and why we've all been stuck in the matrix and not really accepting? You know, Houdini, and I know Mad could help us out here if his wire wasn't bent. But Dr. Was it Sherlock Holmes, Ahmed? You do all that fancy stuff on those history. There's a lot of people that believed in this stuff. They just couldn't really prove it back then, could they?
I'm sorry, I was unplugging stuff and I missed what you said. Could you hear
know about
now?
the people?
Is my mic working now?
Yeah, some of the people. I know Harry Houdini, although that wasn't his real name. He was very interested in the other side. Dr. Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson, I guess, and Sherlock Holmes. Some of the people we know with the Fae over in the old countries, they'd go over there and interview people. And after that, they didn't have the scientific or electronics that we have today to assist people scientifically to understand the energy. Barry, can you explain what's going on with this? Why is technology, I mean, is it really that the technology is what's showing us these beings that have always been around, but yet people didn't accept them?
The guides and the spirit world is trying to move us ahead with their understanding of what's going on around us. We were introduced, as I was getting more involved with my books, I started asking more and more questions about the alien presence around us because I believed in it, and the master guides would answer my questions. And then one night we were talking to the guides, and they said, "Next session we're going to introduce you to somebody that can answer all your questions because he is one." The next week we're channeling, and in comes my friend Moo, who is a spirit of an alien. As we found out, aliens have the same souls as humans, go to the same heaven we do, and worship the same God of the galaxy that we do. He's a blue alien, stands 9.5 feet tall, comes from a planet on the far wing of the Milky Way. It's about the size of Jupiter. He has 8 moons and 2 suns. His lifespan, average lifespan on his planet is about 950 of our years. Mu died in 1987 at the age of 952 years. And through his lifetime, he had done 2 missions here to Earth. One was on one mission, he was here for 10 years. And on another one, he was only here for a couple months. So he's well familiar with human progress and everything that goes with it. And at one time, he had actually reincarnated as a human a long time ago. So he started to provide all the information that I would ask. A lot of the questions I ask, he can't answer because it involves emotions or languages that I can't conceive of, or any human can. He's been very positive about the alien mission on Earth, talks to us all the time about the future of humans. We're a very young society, and as he said, younger societies are all violent. And he says we're not the only ones of the younger societies that they observe, and we're actually one of the least violent of the groups that have been around for as long as we have. With his corroboration, I wrote a book, just came out this week. It's called Aliens Among Us: Exploring Past and Present. And it basically just goes through, he answers my questions as I ask them. We use his exact words, and every word that's in the book, I have a videotape of the session where he gave us the message. We've used different combinations with him. I have friends in Salt Lake City, that the ones that taught us how to board channel, and sometimes I would get on Skype here in Pennsylvania, and they would have the board in Salt Lake on Skype, and I would ask the questions of them, and they would answer, and I would get answers. Many people doubt the ability of using the channeling board. They think that we're influencing the answers. That's why when the board is 2,000 miles away from me, and they're answering questions on events that happened here that they have absolutely no knowledge of, I can guarantee you that spirit energy that is working the board for us. We put this book together. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to interject, Barry, that there was a group called Messages from Michael, and they did a board for several generations. They started, I think, in the 60s or 70s, and they would just, transcribe everything. They stuck it all up in an attic in boxes. They had boxes and boxes, and then finally Chelsea Yarbrough or something like that, a name like that, pulled it up and started to compile it. And so it was like by the time she got to it was 30 or 40 years worth of messages. and the group was still going. And so she would correlate the stuff from the ancient people that were long dead and that didn't know each other and the current people, and it was incredibly accurate. So it couldn't have been, just the person operating the board influencing it, because it was different people. If you look at it scientifically, is it telepathy? Are we telepathically communicating? Is it dead people? Is it, yeah, it's really hard to answer those things. You can only, come to some conclusion and basically believe what you want to believe. But it was fascinating. If you ever want to read a book that's similar probably to what you're getting, it's called Messages from Michael.
Yeah, what Mu on his planet, they don't talk. They communicate mentally. He said we would refer to it as being mentally telepathic. Mm-hmm. But I think what they're trying to do is advance us to the point that we can communicate without talking by thinking about this spirit energy.
Sure helps when there's no oxygen around.
Yeah, their presence is so real. We were doing a session out in Salt Lake, and I was there we had the board. I was not on the board. My two friends were, but I was asking the questions. And we were having the guides actually design the board for us. And they told me that they wanted to be able to remove the face of the board so people could put their own individual decorations on it. And when they said it to me, I got this dumb look on my face because in my mind I couldn't figure out how to do it. And Mu comes on the board and says, "Don't look at me like that."
Hmm.
So, he was a physical, spiritual presence in the room. For him to know that I had this stupid look on my face and then point it out, that's covering a lot of ground on what.
Well, let me ask you this.
Getting past the doubts.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
How are you separating all of these entities or anomalies and classifications? Because we need to establish in the internet or cyberspace how we are separating and what we're calling all these people. Because I too have come across beings telepathically in and out of body, and I have a book called Enchanted Development. And Janet, I put away something 20 or 25 years, and then Janet asked me to type it up, which I did. And it was all what I was getting years and years and years ago. But I just took it as something that I had to do, a mission from another place in space and time, and another part of me, or maybe not, because they gave me a name and different times and places. So I understand that. But at the same time, I know that we're starting to be responsible to each other for all these levels of existence. And I feel like we're supposed to, and maybe just be one of my missions, but I feel like we're supposed to start explaining the various levels of existence, not just on this planet, but what you're talking about. So do you have like Janet was saying, like, okay, we got the dead people, and we got the masters, and we got the ETs, those, you know what I'm saying? Then we got those, like you said, looked at you and saw you. And there's some we may have an automatic writing, or boards, I guess. How are you separating them? Are you calling them by different things?
They've been very consistent with us. Now, I'm reaching the point that they'll start to spell a message on the board, and I'll also hear it in my mind at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I am managing to move ahead with my telepathic skills.
What do you call them? Angels, devils, demons, extraterrestrials, ghosts, all of the above, because people on this planet, we like to know something we can put our mind around, because, some of us get intuition, some of us have thoughts, some of us have memories, some of us remember past lives, some of us don't. We call it the veil. So everything that's on the other side of the veil, for the sake of today's show, everything on the other side of the veil, are you separating the entities?
Yeah, we're talking to multiple entities. We have the ability to pull in personal spirits. My parents come in and talk to my father's been gone for 40 years. He is preparing to reincarnate. So he's actually come in and asked us to pray for him for assistance in his new life plan for when he returns. My mother has no plans of coming back for the time being, and she drops in once in a while. So we've been able to talk to many, many, many different types of spirits. We've talked to the masters. We've talked to just common, ordinary spirits. We talked to them. We had a spirit come in one time. We had 2 guests we were channeling with, and we get this name, and our guest says he just died on Thursday. The fellow comes in, and he gives them instructions for his own funeral that is going to be held on that coming Monday.
Oh, wow. They got TV shows on those guys. Fact or fiction,
Yeah, no, it was absolutely real. I mean, as soon as he comes in, they said, oh, my God. The family had the details and knew it. He was military. He said, I want to have my medals. And, he gave him a whole list of stuff that he wants to have at his funeral in 2 days. We talked to Davy Jones of the Monkees about a month after he passed.
Oh, tell me about what Davy Jones had to say. I was so in love with Davy Jones when I was a teenager. What did he have to say?
Well, Davy Jones had a massive heart attack while he was riding his horses. And there were rumors out there that things could have been done. So the main question we asked Davy Jones was if there was any foul play in his death. And his answer was, no, it was my time. And we hear that all the time from the spirits, that when you make your life plan, there's a time that is given, and when that time comes, you are going to pass. And that's what happened to him. It was a complete shock to him. He wasn't expecting to pass. He was worried about his horses and who was going to take care of his horses. But it was a very interesting conversation.
Cool.
Yeah, he was a nice guy. Very nice.
Communication from Michael Jackson, and there's a couple others. I just had what was the guy?
Bowie.
What's his name?
Bowie.
David Bowie. Yeah, I keep forgetting his name. David Bowie came through.
Hi,
hubby just came in, but
hi, Dr. Leslie.
Everybody says hi.
Hi. We don't get to hear from him.
No, he's too busy. Anyway, let's go back to Barry. So, Barry, what is the most profound message you've received? We only have like a half hour. This is going so fast. We're going to have you back for sure. But who came through with the most profound message for you and your group? And, was it an individual message or one for humanity or some of the above?
One of the most emotional things that ever happened, we had a couple in as guests for a channeling session, and her son was in very, very bad shape. He had 18 surgeries, has to go back every month to the hospital, and she had been seeing these light figures like spirals and stuff, and she had prayed to the Blessed Mother even though she was not Catholic. She comes in and asks what this stands for, and all of a sudden we could feel this energy change in the room, and I've literally got tears coming down my face, and the Holy Mother comes in to tell her that she has heard her prayers and will be with her. The energy that was probably the most emotional thing I've ever been involved on the board. When the session was over, I asked the guides, I said, did you know she was coming? And they said, yes, we prepared for her. So that was quite a session. Profound. Moo has given us many statements about the alien mission here. They're all positive.
Which one?
That they're here to help us, that they're not here to hurt us in any way, that they contribute to the growth to human growth. They give us things like they gave us the Salk vaccine. The MRI machine was given to us. That he's gone through a very long list of things that the aliens have done through the years to help humans progress. And what he says is that we will reach a time that life on our earth will end, that the sun will eat itself. It is the nature of things, and for humans to survive, we have to be able to travel the planets. And the aliens are here to help us do it. There are many, many more aliens here than we would ever believe. There are many different types. They don't fight among themselves. They're controlled by a committee. And they're just simply here to help with the evolution of humans. And we are evolving more rapidly. And that is why they're getting closer to disclosure, because they're helping us more as the veil is dropping. And as we progress, they're just simply here to help us.
Do they have a non-interference clause where they're not allowed to interfere until perhaps a certain level of evolution?
Absolutely. The way he describes it is everyone that comes to visit Earth has to get permission from the commission. And he said that they actually have a device on them that reads their mind, that will send a message back if they're thinking about breaking the rules. And
they read your conscience, huh?
Yeah.
Is it their master guide, or is it their guardian angel that steps in, or is it just God, source to God, or God, we'll say our particular location, our energy to source, God, whatever. A lot of people say it's not the same.
No. What he has said is that every galaxy has a God. Since he's in our galaxy, he worships the same God we do, and that God has actually sent his son to their planet 4,000 years ago as he did to ours. On his planet, they refer to him as the Wise One, and they have a celebration very similar to our Christmas, where they celebrate the birth of the Wise One. He and I are working on another book, and we have actually done a chapter already on the universality of God. That's a very interesting chapter. And he says that on his planet there are non-believers just the same as there are on Earth, in spite of all the evidence.
Ahmed, you got any questions? Thousand?
What you were saying was that God's son then has died for other people's sins on several planets, not just Earth?
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble hearing you, but...
Yeah, somebody's making a lot of noise. If you could mute your microphone in between talking, that would be great. Okay, go ahead, Barry.
But on his planet, the Son of God died naturally. It was part of the process, whereby on our planet, he was crucified. So their planet has evolved to the point where they don't fight, just the same as all of the highly evolved people cooperate with each other. We watch the movies with all the violence of the space people fighting. It's not like that at all. It's all very well controlled, and they just simply have evolved to the point that they don't need violence.
TJ, I have a quick question for you. Doesn't that correlate with what Tom told you about when he was on board the ship, that they had to have Tom show him what it was like to hit somebody and what it was like to kill somebody because they were incapable of doing the same?
Yeah, they didn't. They were at such a high level, Janet, in human form, but they didn't understand physical violence. They had to be taught, and they didn't want to learn it. It was very hard to be in the military between here and there and work in this particular quadrant when they weren't accustomed to our physical violence. The kids were young, and some of the men that had been around walking here on World War II, they went up there, but they were pretty much an administrative, come and go. But yeah, you're right. They had to be shown, and that's why he got to go up there, basically. Well, he was chosen from the beginning, before. And that goes back to the soul box and where our souls come from. Barry,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about my husband that passed, and Jan and I have a lot of years experience with him, but he's gone now. But he did share some information working on what Janet calls this secret space program. Basically, it's really just people that have opportunity to work in other places in space in a human form and come and go in spirit. But have you talked to them about the soul or the Gulf of Souls or how various souls around the universe or the cosmos are just those here on this planet?
No, no. We've talked, as he says, a soul is a soul. They are neither created nor destroyed. They go to the same heaven we do, but when they're planning to reincarnate, they'll come to the heaven of the planet. If they're not planning on reincarnate, the soul energy is free to travel through around the galaxy. He says that you have the ability and actually the obligation to reincarnate on other planets as part of your soul experience.
Yeah, my soul goes back to out beyond many, many levels. So the galaxy level seems to be very, well, you wouldn't say a different place in space, but we do use location, I guess one would say. But I related in my writings when I first began with Andromeda myself, it was the closest galaxy to this galaxy. Have you heard of anybody off this galaxy? You said Mu came from this one, Milky Way.
Yeah, what he said is if you're higher evolved, you can reincarnate on other galaxies, but basically you have to get the permission of that god to do it. Since there's a different god, each god has different rules, apparently.
Yeah, various levels. And I know that many people in various religions do talk about various gods, but in our myth and folklore, which we have Ace Folk Life too, we study myths and legends and ancient astronauts, clues and views. And you can find us folks on Facebook, many various groups and pages. But we do discuss those from other places in space, not just this galaxy. But many people in the past have seemingly only referred to those in this particular galaxy. So it sounds like your guy Mu, which just happens to be Mu like our history, prior to Lemuria, which is named after Lemurs, was Mu, Mu. And did he discuss that with you? I just found that curious that he uses the same name of one of the gods.
Right.
He has actually he has brought spirits from other galaxies in for sessions already. One time he said he had two friends with him from another galaxy, and he described them, but he said they can't communicate with you because you have no idea how their language works. So for some reason, he was translating and giving information from them. But I don't think I ever communicated directly with a spirit from another galaxy.
I have a question, Barry.
Sure.
What is a god? There's all these gods, and is there a difference from a god and God source or universal consciousness? From my understanding, that the word God just was what meant leader or ruler, and it got hijacked as the God, but it's more accurate to say that the God is source, and that these are subparsing of the divine oneness. I can't quite explain it, but I have an understanding. What's your understanding of the gods and God source?
Okay, the way he explains it is that the purpose of your soul is to advance, to become more and more godlike. You have the masters, and the masters will, as they progress, they have the chance to. What he said was, if you have enough time, your soul you can advance to the point that you can be a god and see how it works. He said that throughout the universe, since each galaxy has a god, there's actually a pecking order of the gods of the different galaxies. And that over top of the gods of the galaxies, there's actually a 3-god triumvirate that controls this. So there's it's like our universe is like the greatest business organization that you ever see. You have the gods are organized, and then you get into the levels of the there's 7 levels on the other side of heaven, and then you have our souls that try to progress through those levels, and you're always trying to become more godlike, and this goes on for thousands upon thousands of years and hundreds of lifetimes, and it's a very, very long progression. And to them, there's really no time over there, and you just, as you learn and as your soul progresses, you advance. And as you advance, you become more like God. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah.
It is a difficult concept.
And I do my best to wrap my head around it. But that's my understanding, is that we're all like little mini gods co-creating with Source, and the potential of where we want to be and how we want to work in the universe is endless. There's no limitations. Okay, where do we want to go with all this? Do you have another question, TJ or Mad, for Barry? We've got another about 15, 20 minutes.
Mad, what do you got? Anything? See, this is an interesting topic. You may not. Have you ever discussed this, Matt, on your show? He's got a show.
No, I haven't. We've never done anything like channeling. I got a question about the person you channel, Mu. Is there any connection with the ancient continent of Mu?
Yeah, his name's Mu.
Yeah. Does he relate to that continent?
Does he relate to the continent?
Planet.
Does he? What do you mean? He relates? What do you mean? He relates to the continent?
I mean, is there any connection between him and the continent of Mu?
Well, Mu's soul is a member. He is a member of my soul family. You have this family of souls over there, and there's a huge amount of souls that are actually part of your soul family. Just like Connie and I have been together 6 or 7 different lifetimes. So we know what our relationship is. Mu and my wife Connie, I think, were brothers and sisters in a prior life. So it's everybody. You have a group of souls that's interrelated, and they look out for you. And that's some of them become guides. They can come through as what you believe as guardian angels. I've photographed 6 different angels that I, through my different travels and writing for my first book. I've seen physically 3 angels myself. I'll tell you a quick guardian angel story. When I was taking pictures for my first book, my first book is Haunting and History of the Battle of Gettysburg. And for 2 years, I photographed at night by myself out on the battlefield. One night I'm out on the battlefield and I start down this wooded trail and I start to feel fear. And in my head, I clearly hear the message, don't go. I go back 50 feet and this huge tree falls right on the path where I would have been at night by myself. So I thought it was my natural guardian angel that had done that. As I progressed in my channeling abilities, I actually communicated with a prior life friend, and he and I had fought together as Confederate soldiers at Gettysburg. And that's why I've always been drawn to the battlefield out there. So I asked, his name was Jeffrey. So I said, Jeffrey, was that you that saved my life out on the battlefield that night? And his answer was, no, it was the soldiers. It was the souls of the soldiers that I fought with out there that actually saved my life on the battlefield, because they still recognize my soul when I'm out on the battlefield. By the same token, when I can go into Union parts of the battlefield, and they will follow me, and I actually had them throw a stone at my truck out there one night, because being a past Confederate soldier, they don't want any part of you out there yet. So your guardian angel can be earthbound spirits. Not necessarily the angels themselves are acting as your protectors. One of the primary roles of your angel is to actually carry your prayers to the guides and the masters. I don't know if that's clear or not. Sometimes I can start rambling.
No, that makes sense, because even if you want to say Christian faith, well, even the Muslims, but they believe in angels because it was Gabriel that came to Muhammad, Gabriel, and these are messengers, so of course that makes sense to those that believe, maybe not to those that don't. Agnostics and atheists may have a harder time with that thought. But
they have a terrible time with that. I'll give you another quick story. We did a session one night on prayer. What happens when you pray? We had a saint in, and we did this whole big session, and he explained the total concept of prayer and what happens to your prayers, why they get answered, why they don't. But what he said was that your angel carries your prayers. So 2 nights later, Connie and I are asleep, and she gets up, goes to the bathroom, and wakes me up like she usually does. And then I'm laying there trying to go back to sleep. I roll over, and I see an angel go across our bed. And I said, Connie, I just saw an angel. And she said, I just finished my prayers. So 2 nights after the session, they gave me an acknowledgement of what they had told me in the session.
Well, we should never underestimate on this planet the power of angels, because we're still fighting the wars, just like the Muslims and the Christians, whether they understand or not. It's pretty much under the same God, Abraham, same Bible, same stories. People need to understand that, but maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's why we're having this discussion. People need to get above and rise above all these little details, and I hate to see what's happening to the women for lack of education and burning the books and all that. You've heard the story, Barry, of Malala, the little Indian girl, 16, got the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
Carrying the story, got hit in the...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Hey, TJ, there's a lot of background noise coming from you. Are you somewhere where there's a window open or a fan blowing?
No, it's it's my sweet sister-in-law that's mowing my lawn, but I'll put it back on.
Oh, okay. That's the noise. Oh, okay. All right. So, go ahead. What else would you like to tell us? We've only got a few minutes left, and we'd like to hear your story. And I know we're not going to get through it all. So, Barry, what would you like to tell us?
No, we have an awful lot of stories. When you've channeled 400 hours, you build up a lot of stories. What's
the most relevant for our listeners that they need to hear, so they can kind of really understand your work?
Probably the best way for them to do it is to go to my website. It's spiritspredict.com, just simply spiritspredict.com. I have a page on there where I show you a picture of the channeling board we use, explain the whole channeling process, and have our prayer protection written out on the page. It also gives you the ability to sign up for my newsletter should you have the urge to do that. And you can also connect to my other one, which is messagesofheaven.com. And that is where I have the messages of the saints and the popes that we have channeled with in the past. You can go in and see actual transcripts where we talk to St. Bartholomew, St. Andrew, St. Timothy. They were all apostles, obviously. We've channeled with Pope Sylvester I, that was the Pope when Constantine selected the books of the Bible. We get a lot of insight about how different gospels were collected, how many were presented. There's a lot of interesting information, and I think that's probably the easiest way for people to understand what we do.
So what was going on with Constantine? From my understanding, there was basically an encyclopedia, and then they were deciding their variation on reality and the truth, and they were selecting certain books and throwing out the others.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Constantine was interested simply in solidifying his political power. It was a time when the Christians were gaining in population, and Constantine feared that they would actually overthrow the Roman government. So he felt that if he made a union with the Christians, that it would preserve his power. And I think it was 325 AD or something like that, he has he calls the Catholic Pope which was Sylvester at that time, and Gospels are presented to them for selection. There were 300 Gospels selected, or there were 300 Gospels presented, of which 88 were selected. So many of the Gospels that did not suit Constantine politically were not selected for many of the Gnostic verse, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, for instance. And Jesus himself had written his own gospel, which was not accepted for the Bible of that time. So I'm actually thinking about writing a book about the lost Gospels, from the guides giving me the information that was lost.
Yeah, that would be fascinating to read the book that Jesus wrote. Is that anywhere preserved?
No.
Somebody hiding it from us?
It was carefully destroyed by the 4th century. Most of the outstanding Gospels were either hidden or destroyed. Many of them weren't found, but the secret teachings of Jesus' Gospel was destroyed. The saints told us that Jesus actually taught of reincarnation among the apostles. Mm-hmm. But all that was taken out of the Bible as selected.
Well, I'm sure somebody preserved it somewhere, but it probably isn't, going to be revealed one way or the other, because then we wouldn't be able to get it somewhere. I predict that somewhere in time it'll come forth. All these books they're hidden, because they didn't just have one copy. They copied and put them in different places. So, okay, we're running out of time. We only have a few minutes. That's it. We're out of time.
Yep. Join us next week, folks. We'll be back here, same time, same station. Join us in another hour. Thank you, Janet.
Excellent.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. Love and blessings and aloha. Thank you, Barry.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Matt.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Enjoy your extra big ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another extra big ass fries?
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
trouble.
Come
on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.